Stakeholders are groups of people that you need to work with for any given product. You'll have these in your daily life in engineering or nursing or business. These are going to be your manager and your spouse and your kids and that sort of thing. For this class, the stakeholders are broken into 6 groups. Now, you'll see other websites, other articles where they'll lump them as internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. None of these are incorrect. I just chose this 6 bucket model so we were all speaking the same language. So any group or individual who can affect or is affected by the achievement of the organization's objectives is a stakeholder. So if you take out the word organization and put in product, that's going to be what you are doing for this class. As you remember from our marketing overview discussion, stakeholders can really make or break your product. So the 6 groups, just to kind of talk them through, are the customer, which is self-explanatory. We all know what a customer is, the person that buys your product. The employee is going to be the person making the product. Anyone that works for Raiders International for our course is going to be an employee. Suppliers. Okay, so hopefully most of you know what a supply chain is. If not, go do a quick Google search and come back to the video. For my Wait and Eat product, the suppliers are going to be the electrical components inside, the ceramic dish, the timing apparatus, the glass lid. These are probably all going to be made by folks in our supply chain and then assembled at Raiders International. There'll probably be some proprietary pieces that we make in-house, but for the most part, the smaller components will be made by our suppliers. So smaller companies that we buy our parts from. Shareholders are the folks that own the company. They're most concerned with your profit, your return on investment, your margins. They are anyone from potentially an employee that owns a share in the company or large investment firms that own multiple, maybe thousands of shares in Raiders International. These will also be your executive leadership team who tend to also be on the board of directors. There's a bit of an overlap between employees and shareholders with your CEO. So when you think of shareholders, think of the board of directors and actual stockholders for most of this class. Legal and regulatory are going to be your internal legal department, what you can and can't say about a product, and then your oversight groups. So for example, my Wait and Eat product, there are probably OSHA requirements I need to be aware of. What is the safe refrigeration temperature for food? I know that when the health inspector comes to restaurants, there has to be a temperature that the food is refrigerated below for it still to be safe. So I'll need to make sure that my Wait and Eat product keeps food that cold. There might be OSHA, I said FDA, there might be, there's all kinds of legal and regulatory groups. And then not only from the actual safety of my product, but where am I going to put this? Maybe I want to sell it on Amazon. So I need to make sure that I'm compliant with any Amazon legal and regulation. For all of you that thought you wanted to create an app, you need to make sure you're compliant with your iOS or your Google and Android platform rules and requirements, whatever those are. And then community members. So this kind of goes to like your CSR, your corporate social responsibility. How does your product impact the community? My product, I'm going to have to kind of stretch and get a little creative with the community members. If you look at Raiders International, there are a couple of different geography locations. So maybe the plant where your product is made has a large annual chili cook-off. And with my Wait and Eat product, I could sponsor the chili cook-off as a way to give back to the community and have people recognize that I have this great new product that would make some really killer chili if you have 10 hours in a day. So a community member, you might have to stretch on your product. If you have a product that helps the community, that one's going to be an easier one for you. Okay, so these are our 6 stakeholder groups. If you wanted to think internal and external stakeholders, because you will hear me say that a couple of times in this class, internal is anyone that works inside of Raiders. So those are going to be your employee, your shareholders. Sometimes they're thought of as internal because the things you say to them are more proprietary. And then your external are going to be your customer, your community members. Legal and regulatory might be internal if you're talking about your legal department. They might be external if you're talking about OSHA, but you just need to know when you're thinking through them, because you talk differently inside your company than you do to folks outside of your company. If you think about when you're talking about your proprietary information at work, there are things you can say to coworkers that you can't say to a competitor or a customer. So that is the 6 stakeholder groups. What I also wanted to speak to a little bit was demographics. When you get to customer, I'm going to ask you to be specific, not just customer. Who is your customer? So for my Wait and Eat product, it's going to be working women are my primary group that I'm selling to. Probably mothers. And the reason that I have those demographics, age, those sorts of things, those are the folks that are cooking at their home. Gender matters because typically women are still the primary food preparers in families. Statistics show this time and time again. Does the race matter? Not really. There's not going to be any difference between the races that comes into how I sell or market my product to them. Sexual orientation, again, probably doesn't matter. Having children would matter some, because if you think about how parents cook versus how a single person cooks, there's a difference in quality of food. There's definitely a difference in quantity of food. You just feed your family different than you feed yourself, usually. Languages spoken, if you see that one, that might matter because I might need to change my packaging to Chinese or Spanish in certain markets. Political affiliation does not matter at all for my product. Veteran status probably doesn't matter. Education level probably doesn't matter. So when you think through your demographics, I want you to be able to rationalize what matters and why for you. Usually this is for customers. Most of these things aren't going to matter. It might also come into play with your community. If you're in a really poor community and you have a really expensive product, you're going to have to do a little bit of movement and negotiation there with your product. So I hope that made sense for Stakeholder ID. You have your 6 different groups: customer, employee, supplier, shareholders, legal and regulatory, and community members. And you need to think through your product, who would be in each of those 6 buckets. Your primary customer, again, for my Wait and Eat product, my primary customer is going to be that working mother. Maybe I have a secondary customer of young urban working people that want to start eating better but don't really have the time to cook after work. That's obviously going to be a different demographic. I'm going to have to do a different value proposition because I'm not talking about taking care of your family. I'm talking about being efficient with your time. So think through those different buckets. Your employee, are you talking about your manufacturing employee? Are you talking about your marketing employee? Are you talking about your sales guy? So think through those different buckets. All right, stakeholder IDs.